Well, good evening and welcome to this very special webinar on this auspicious occasion of the 50th anniversary of the Carnation Revolution here in Portugal on this fine evening as well. It's been a beautiful day here. I think people all over Portugal have been celebrating, of course, having a holiday. Not the Portugal company, though. They're working hard with us tonight. Peter and Alice van Luna, how are you both? Good to have you on the screen.
Hey, yeah, we are very fine, right?
Yes,
so we are
good.
enjoying this lovely bank holiday, doing some work. Not too much, to be honest, today, but hey, enjoying it. So this doesn't feel like work. Let me put it like that.
Excellent. I don't know if you got the memo, but I've got some espumante in the freezer. I just bought it from the supermarket, which was open today, which was great. And I'm hoping it won't explode between now and around 8:45, where if you'll permit us, Jerry, to drink whilst working this evening.
on this one special occasion, not just for Carnation Day, but also to celebrate Sarah's success in achieving her Portuguese visa, and she will be moving here in the next few weeks.
Yes,
absolutely. Well, I'm looking forward to raising a glass. So we'll have a moment where people can grab whatever they can find in their fridge, freezer, or drinks cabinet, and we'll drink to whoever would like to be drunk to this evening. But those are two really good reasons already, and I'm hoping that my spumante won't have exploded and I'll have a glass of spumante rather than sucking on spumante icicles from the freezer, but we'll see a little bit later on. So to the point of the evening's webinar, welcome aboard, understanding the real estate buying process in Portugal. What are the steps? So this will be step by step tonight with some very experienced folks here who've helped many people do that, and of course you've done it yourselves. Which part of Portugal are you in tonight? Which home are you in this evening?
Yeah, good question.
Sounds like you've got hundreds, doesn't it?
No, it's just no, a little bit less.
a little bit less than 100.
Okay, very good. Which one tonight? Where are you?
Which one? We are at our quinta in the middle of Portugal, so half an hour south of Coimbra, more or less, in the center.
Absolutely. And I dare say you've been hearing a few fireworks and church bells as people celebrate in central Portugal.
Yeah, well, actually, because we are a couple of minutes out of the village in a kind of secluded valley, so we didn't hear nothing.
Oh, really? Well, there you go.
We followed it a bit in the morning on television, but well, you know, it's always I'm not supposed to say this, but it's always the same story. So we were like, okay, let's go back to what we have planned to do. So that was all fine. Yeah.
And I imagine people hearing that are thinking, actually, that sounds really nice. In a valley, a secluded valley somewhere in Portugal, not hearing anything, not even church bells. Brilliant. So you're going to show us step by step how to do that, as well as wherever else people would like to buy in Portugal, of course. And we have a number of points to step through on this step plan to buying in Portugal here. We're going to start with the dream phase, because everything, I guess, that exists now began as a thought or a dream. And we're starting with dreaming and how the plan comes together with you, Peter. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right, Carl. So it all starts with a dream. If it sounds a bit romantic, but in most of cases, people are just sitting where they are in other parts of Europe or in the US, dreaming of becoming a Portuguese resident or buying a holiday home or renting something first in Portugal. So that's why we kind of always want to start very early in the process. That's for us, and also for the people that we support, is the best way. So we want to sit together with them, really check on a couple of things, where to buy in Portugal, for example, because not everyone is really very determined yet where they want to be in Portugal. Believe me or not, we had some clients from the US. They didn't have any idea where to start. They thought it was all beaches and all golf courses. But of course, as you know, we also have a lot of nice nature reserve parks, mountains. Well, we have it all. So for us, it's very important to sit down, and it can be virtually via a call like today, via Zoom or Google or whatsoever, really to make sure that we know where people want to be, in which region, close to a city or in the middle of the city. So that's very important. The other part there is also very good to know what kind of house do you want to buy or to rent, huh? So is it a big family farm in the middle of nowhere in this secluded valley? Or is it a very centrally located apartment in the middle of Porto or Lisbon or any of the other cities? So that's what we want to know. We need to know, of course, a bit about your budget, about what do you want to do in the house? Huh? Is it just for yourself and your husband, or is it to invite and to have over a lot of friends and extended family? So these kind of things we want to know in an early stage, and before we really start to search the properties. That's a bit the first stage. Also to learn each other. We also really want to invest time in knowing what people are looking for. They also want to know us, of course. Who is Alice? Who is Peter? Who is the Portugal company? Because we might present this a bit as a process, as a buying process, but for us it's not a process. For us it's really a custom-made way of working to really make sure that we know what you are looking for and where we can step in. So sometimes people also already know. We had a completion of a deal a couple of weeks ago for Australian/UK client. He wanted to be in the middle of Lisbon, next to a metro station of the red metro line. Well, that's really good information.
That's specific, isn't it?
It's really focusing, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not as focused yet in the beginning. So that's really what we want to do in this, what we call dream or selection phase, Carl.
Wonderful. So it could be anything between this sort of numinous idea of beaches and golf courses. And you can help with that, of course, as well. You can find somebody at home near golf courses and beaches, or Lisbon, somewhere on the red line. You can be very specific like that. And you said the getting to know you call. You're telling people about yourselves. Could we have a little bit of that now as well? You know, who we're dealing with, a little pen portrait of the Portugal company of you both, and a chance to meet Alice at this stage as well. So could you introduce yourselves and tell us about how the Portugal company happened?
Let's say we started. Our background and whatever, we are quite very international because we have been working for corporate companies in the Netherlands as well and in Portugal. Both of us, or especially me, I speak 7 languages. Then I also worked a lot with international companies and I had teams. And after a while in 2017, even though we have been always involved buying properties, because for us, for family, and we like houses. This is something that really we do because we have passion on that. And 2017, we thought, okay, we had some people asking us, okay, how do you do that? Because this farm where we are today, we bought this 10 years ago. And before that, we have something in Lisbon as well. We did some investments already in Portugal. And people were always asking, okay, how do you do that? How can you help us? And it became like from a hobby, let's say, became something that we really liked. And then we started our company in 2017, and we have decided to change our lives, and we came to Portugal and we started to do that, not only for us but also for people that they had, let's say, the dream. But for me the dream is like a concrete objective, and we help them to make it happen. This is what we have done in the last 10 since 2017. And what we do is really what Peter just said, custom made. And we look to each client. We do all Portugal. We have clients, they want to be in Algarve, they want to be in Alentejo, they want to be in Lisbon, central Portugal, north of Portugal. And we try really to find what they are looking for.
Wonderful. And it sounds like you're building a relationship with people. Yes, for their life here in Portugal.
And we help them also. What we sometimes help clients is really to focus, understanding what kind of temperature they like, what kind of environment, and that we look to Portugal, because everybody that is here already knows Portugal is small, but we have so many variety, it's so many things different that it fits everybody, but we need to understand what the person is looking for, that drive them to the right place, let's say.
And their individual bespoke requirements, of course. Perfect. Thanks for that, Alice. Do you want to add anything to that, Peter, in terms of the formation of the company and your background?
No, I think, well, for me, it all started because I'm Dutch, as you know, and so people might wonder, hey, what's this Dutchman doing in Portugal? Which is
I wasn't, but now you mention it,
very
what was
fair
this
question.
Dutchman doing in Portugal?
Let's be honest. And so my first move from the Netherlands to Portugal was in '98 in April, so 25 years ago. And I remember, just to go back a little bit to this Revolution Day, which we have today, of course. I was a bit overwhelmed 25 years ago. It was the 25th anniversary, of course, of the revolution, and I was in the middle of. I just arrived in Portugal in Lisbon, and believe me, 25 years ago, I was living in a very small apartment in Alfama with some Dutch friends. And it was a completely different Alfama than we have nowadays. So we were there at Praça de Comércio with a couple of tens of thousands of people hanging out, drinking beer and wine, and cheering to a revolution, which I back then didn't really understand, to be honest. But
it looks like you got into the spirit of it though pretty quickly.
Yeah, so this is a bit where I fell in love with Portugal and with Portuguese, Alice, and so I'm I was always involved in marketing and communications for tech companies, multinationals. But since we started to invest ourselves in property here in Portugal, and our passion started to grow a bit bigger and bigger, we decided to start the Portugal company. And I think it's fair to say that it's we were very happy with it. Still, very dedicated to help people. We take on about so it's also a bit for us about the size. So don't expect us to be a big company with a big fancy office space somewhere in Lisbon or in any other part of the country. It's just the two of us, and we travel a lot. So we are a bit nomads before the term nomads became in. We travel where clients want us to be. As Alice was saying, it can be anywhere in the country. Sometimes we try to focus on a specific part of Portugal, but then we say, nah, it's just too much fun to do it all. So we take on about maximum 20 or maybe 25 projects a year. We do it all ourselves. We build a team around. If we need an architect or a lawyer, we always need lawyers. Believe me, you need a lawyer if you buy property here. Or as Sarah will step in later in this webinar, if it's about transferring money, we need an expert on that field. It can be an engineer, it can be an architect, you name it. We don't have them, of course, on our payroll, as we really wanted to be this small company. But as Alice is saying, we work together. We form a team with these experts, and that's it.
And also,
that's wonderful.
Yeah, also with builder companies. We have certain contacts from in the south of Portugal, in Lisbon, in Oporto, in the central of Portugal. We have teams that work with us, and we have the people that we think and we feel that we trust. We work together and we have a good relation. And we understand that when people are coming, we can make it sure that, okay, they are coming, they want to rebuild the house, whatever, and we put them in contact with the right people.
Wonderful. So it's the two of you backed by an extensive and trusted network of people that you've built up over the years, whether that be legal or construction or anything that people need. You can lay your hands or connect with people who are going to make this happen for people. And how lovely that you're helping people build their dream in Portugal. And it's what you did. This is a passion-based business. You had a dream to do this, and clearly you're very successfully doing it, and ahead of so many curves, ahead of the nomad curve, ahead of the Portugal moving to Portugal curve, ahead of celebrating the Carnation Revolution. Quite amazing. So well done. You're visionaries, the pair of you as well. So I think we're getting to the point, aren't we, where we're moving from dreaming to planning, and presumably there's a shortlist coming together. Having spoken to people, you're bringing things into focus for people.
Yeah, so here, we ask people to give us input, what kind of property they are looking for. A lot of people, or almost everyone, is looking, of course, online on kind of platforms like Idealista and all the other ones. So we start to build a kind of Excel sheet between us and our clients with all the properties that are really interested and that are really matching all the requirements. I always name it a short list, because sometimes we will be overwhelmed. We had a client, he sent us 800 links. So that was a bit too much. So we worked that down into a short list of, I don't know, 10 or 20. That's the normal thing.
Right.
And then we start to reach out to the realtors that are representing the sellers of these properties, do some desk research. If it's really close to us, we gonna have a look ourselves first. But most importantly, we reach out to the agents. We ask a whole lot of questions about all kind of technical and legal issues that might be the case. It's also very good for you to know if there is a big difference if you are buying an old farm or an old. Some people are dreaming of converting a ruin into their new home, or a completely new built apartment in the city. So that's a completely different way of working, a different approach. So that's why we really want to do this desk research together with you, to check on documentation. That's really something Alice is an expert in. That's why we also work together with lawyers if need to. Yeah, and from there, then if that's all okay, then we have people normally coming over, because we preferred you to be here at the ground together with us to do the viewing. So we organize the viewings for you. During the COVID period, we had some clients that couldn't fly in, so they asked us to just go to the property to show them around by video or by phone or whatever. And then they decided sometimes on the spot to buy it. So yeah, we can do it all. And but as I said, we prefer you to be here for at least, let's say, 3, 4, 5 days, or even longer, depending on your planning, of course. That's the ideal way to work. So we then can go back to the property that you that's your prefer one is, and yeah, that's how it works, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the short list, and you've checked. You've. I guess what happens with that is that you start thinning out the properties based on whether they're truly for sale, because this happens in Portugal, isn't it? Not everything for sale is actually for sale, is it? So you've got a little bit of qualifying to do that other people won't know how to do.
That's correct, because most of the times you see properties that they are, for example, on Idealista, they have been already sold for more than 1 year or 2 years. Or they are still on the list because the agency wants to, it's fishing. Okay, they have a nice property, it's there still, but it's not to sell. But this maybe makes that the client is calling and they say, oh, I'm sorry, it's under promissory contract. And then they say, but we have something else that maybe fits your what you are looking for. This is why I always say when we have clients, I ask them, please, we have a process. We will discuss our process before that they don't get in contact directly with these agencies, that I try to understand upfront what kind of property it is really for sale, how many people are involved. We have an example. We have, for example, an example from one of our clients is buying the third property. The first one, we did it in 45 days. The second one, most the same. And now the third one, because it's a house from 19th century, they had 26 people as owners. That was an heritage. Then there are lots of things involved, and it took 14 months to get this done. And also to make it sure that everything is legal, that everything is correct, because old houses, they have the new regulations and everything can be different and needs to be corrected. And I need to work very close with my colleagues and ask them to put everything on the right, the correct corrections to make it happen.
Is that a record, Alice? 26 people owning one property? Is that the most you've dealt with?
Believe me, for us, I think is this one,
so.
yes, is 26 is the record, but I believe that they are properties, they have even more than that.
Really? That's extraordinary, isn't it? Okay, well, that takes some beating. Well done. So, but the great news there is if all the ducks are in a row, as it were, it can take less than 2 months, like 45 days, I think you said.
And I can tell you the 45 days with bank involved, with financing, everything. Wonderful. And this is why we like to work with clients and we like to have upfront, because before that the client is coming, we will prepare everything upfront, classifying the client, understanding the budget, okay, if they want to share their financial, and also having the bank account, have the fiscal number, everything. When they come here, they know and they find a property and we can move immediately, even though before coming to make it a pre-approval with the banks if they need financing, and that they are sure, okay, I go and I can look for a property for this budget, and we are already sure and he is sure that he can buy it.
Fantastic. So it looks like we're at step 3 kind of, aren't we, here, where we're really homing in, zooming in on the property now. The person knows where they want to be. They found the property. You've qualified it as a sort of bona fide place to buy. They're presumably falling in love with it at this point, and their hopes are high. But there are still a few things to do. There might be inspections. There's a lot of paperwork to do, isn't there? So can you tell us about that part of the process as we're homing in on the dream home now?
Yeah, part of the process is when the client is classified, we can look to him. We can ask, okay, we have already the pre-approval with the bank. And there has, depending on the situation and depending on the client, the timeline can be even 30 days. Looking to the documentation, making sure that everything is okay. And it can be it can be very fast. Of course, if we are looking for properties that, like I told you before, from the 19th century, there were certain things to be corrected because they needed to go back to the big, on the files to make corrections. But if it's an apartment in Lisbon, everything can be very easy. For me, nothing is difficult. The impossible doesn't exist. And if I feel that is almost impossible, I tell immediately the client, please forget this property. Or because I feel that the other side we cannot trust, or there's something missing, or it's something very, very difficult. But until now, I don't think we had something like that, right?
Fishy things. The original 19th century solar panels. If something comes up like that, it's a no-no. So inspections then, tell us about that, because people, if they're working from afar, they're going to want to know what they're buying, and presumably you want them to go through that process. That might also influence negotiation. There might be a bit
exactly. So yeah, we did an inspection on the when we acquired the farm where we are now in 2014. We were like, okay, this is a nice idea. It's a very romantic property, a lot of character, but hey, what are we buying? I'm not an architect, I'm not an engineer, so I really wanted to have somebody at the farm that could tell me and could test some things like the electricity. If the house, as Alice is saying, from the 19th century, is the electricity working? You don't know. So we wanted to do that ourselves. And we always advise our clients to do so. We had British clients, they bought a lovely farm in the Alentejo. So we also had a inspection. So what we typically do, we then form a team of a electrician, a plumber, and an architect, something like that. We then move them in for a day. They just walk around, test everything, like the pump of the pool, but also very simple things like central heating or airco units, because they can be in every room, but who tells you that it's working, So it's very, very simple stuff, but you want to know before you sign the promissory contract. And indeed, as you're saying, Carl, it really has impact on the negotiations, right? Imagine you're still in love with the property, but you found out via inspection that only half of the things are working properly.
Yes.
Then, of course, you want us to step in and to make sure that that we can decrease the price.
And that's one of your strengths as well, isn't it? I mean, that's very much a part of the Portugal company approach, is you'll handle that on behalf of the client.
Yes, and this is something, a very good point, because, in Portugal, compared with other countries where you go and you can immediately see how much it is per square meter, more or less. In Portugal, it's not like this. People, when they have a property, sometimes they ask what they want.
Yes.
Doesn't mean if it's worth or not. They really ask what they want. And what we normally do is we bring the reality, and and we also advise the client. And sometimes, and especially when is a bank involved, where I sometimes really like to work with the banks, it's because someone will come and will make an appraisal, and they will really understand what they are buying. And also what I feel that sometimes, yes, the negotiation we have done for some properties from our clients, I don't want to go specific on it, some clients, but we have done really a big decrease. But also we always stay very fair.
Yep.
Don't take advantage if somebody has a very big problem the other side that we are trying. No, we make it happen on both situations, but especially also when we see a big property, what just Peter was telling, for example, the last one that we helped, where they were asking a very high price for this property from 1900, and we know that is a lot of things to do. We have really done a very good decrease, that people that they have sold, 26 people, they are happy because they don't have any more this in their family, because it was too much headache. Yes. And we have a new client that he bought something, but with the decrease of what we have done, he can now make
for a fair price.
And when people are asking the question, why would I use a buyer's agent? That's a really important factor there, isn't it? Is that they don't know the market that they're negotiating or working in. You do, and you can negotiate quite a saving, which will be you're earning your keep doing that as you're part of the bargain there, and the deal and the arrangement with the client. Fantastic. Okay, and clearly you're working for the client, not the person selling the house, which needs to be pointed out as well, because sometimes that happens, doesn't it? You get a vested interest or a conflict of interest where people are working for the seller whilst appearing to work for the buyer as well. So you're clearly very independent and working principally for the buyer's interests here. Yes. Okay, good to know. And we're getting towards that point. You mentioned it, Peter, the promissory note signing. This is signing on the dotted line. This is the first major commitment, isn't it? Once we found the property and we want to move on it, this is the big commitment.
It is a big commitment, yeah, it is, and so that's why, yeah, we want to work with a lawyer to make sure that the contracts are all fine, and there is a kind of standard promissory contract in Portugal, but sometimes for different reasons we add in clauses into the promissory note. As Alice was saying, sometimes you work with bank loans, so we need to add that to the promissory note as well, or appraisals or things like that. So yeah, it's a very important step, because in a normal situation, when you sign a promissory agreement here in Portugal, you also have to pay about, it depends a bit on the region and on the project, but let's keep it simple. You need to pay about 10% of the purchase price. So that money normally goes directly to the bank account of the seller, which for lots of people outside of Portugal is kind of a nightmare, because they are used to third-party accounts or escrow accounts with notaries or lawyers. So depending a bit on our relationship with the selling agency, and if we know the owner of the current owner of the property, we can advise to open this or to transfer this money into the third party account of the lawyer that we work with, which is more and more kind of becoming standard procedure. But 5 or 6 years ago, there was still a lot of people that's from the selling agencies, so to say. They didn't want to. They wanted to have it directly on the account of the sellers, which apparently
dangerous, isn't it? Potentially. I mean, not to cast aspersions at anyone's trustworthiness, but that is quite a vulnerable position to put yourself in, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and there is a clause also in this promissory note saying that if the seller steps out, he needs to pay this 10% back in double, so 20%. But hey, you don't want to get in that you had to get into that situation. So that's why we normally work with this third party account of lawyers. Yeah, as Alice is saying, a lot of the documents are sometimes missing, especially with older properties. So yeah, and people want to sign a promissory because they want to formalize a deal.
Yeah.
But we are sometimes a bit hesitant and saying, hey, hang on, we first really want to do the due diligence, as we call it, and have really certainty that all the documentation is fine, right?
And also very important, because sometimes, and I don't say that most of my cases are like this, but when I feel that the other side, I can feel that could be some not problem, but avoiding something. Sometimes what I do is preparing everything, because as I told you, we start very earlier in the process. We make it sure that we can be fast. And because of that, sometimes we even know we don't need to have the promissory contract. We go immediately to the deed.
Oh,
and
okay.
even though with the bank involved. For example, I can tell you last year I had several projects, at least I remember now 2 of them, immediately for completion without promissory contract. At the moment, we are now finalizing one that we will have the promissory contract, but immediately we will have also the completion. And I try sometimes when I feel that can take longer, or I see how can I manage, and because it's also trust. I mean, putting the money on an account from a person that is selling the property, I need to understand who is the other side, and of course, we try always. I don't say that it's always like that, but sometimes I can avoid the promissory contract and I can build the operation that we go immediately.
That's great. I didn't know about that. That's really good to know. So thank you for that. And at this point, and we're talking about moving money around the world, aren't we? If people are buying from abroad. And it's a good point for Sarah to come in from Spartan FX. And we'll come back to your last step in the process, which is, of course, the completion. And we can mention the drinking of spumant again. And when the corks can pop and people have got the keys in their hand. So we'll come back to that, a wonderful moment for people when they've got their keys and they've got their home in Portugal. But we're moving money around now, Sarah, and who better to talk to than you about that?
Absolutely. I mean, that's essentially what we do. We help people make their payments, move their money from their home country, whether that be the US, Canada, the UK, Australia, to Portugal, and try and make that process easier and cheaper, essentially. There's a couple of points that obviously that I think Alice touched on about sort of obviously thinking about your budget. Now, that can be very difficult because if you've got, say, US dollars and you're buying in euros, the exchange rate, how that moves is really going to dictate how much that property is actually going to cost you. If you leave it to the last minute and you're just going to make the payment that week or on the day, you're really restricted to whatever the rate is at that specific time. The rate could be good or it could be a lot worse. So, I mean, we've seen this year so far a 3% movement in the exchange rate of selling US dollars and buying euros. And on a 250,000 euro property, the difference is 8,000 US dollars. And that's just on exchange rate movement. So if you give yourself a little bit more time, you may have more options available to you. But also, we do have solutions where you can buy your euros in advance. So even if you don't have a euro bank account or you don't have a beneficiary to pay yet, you can still take advantage of the rate. Specifically for property, when you know that you're going to be making a payment, sort of obviously they've talked obviously the deposit, but then the completion in the future, we can fix the rate with just a 10% deposit. So we don't need the full amount from you. So if you've got it in higher interest rate bearing accounts or you haven't got the money available yet, there's still an opportunity to secure your euros in advance. And the benefit really is just helps you budget. You can control your costs and you know exactly how much that property is going to cost you, or we can just help you monitor the rate and you can buy it as and when you need it. But really just bear that in mind, that the exchange rate movements, that is going to obviously affect how much it's actually
with that illustration, 8,000 euros is a serious contribution to your furnishings or other improvements you want to make to the building. Quite a nice weekend away in Paris for 8,000, I suspect, once you're based here in Portugal. But 8 grand, whichever way you want to spend it, I mean, that's pretty amazing. So something to be aware of. And given that we're looking at the step-by-step process of buying, where do you think people should talk to you in that process? I mean, this is the key moment when they need the money and they need the money moving, but they might be talking to you some way before that and opening up their account.
Yeah, definitely. Because as I said, if you give yourself more time, there is more options and you could be looking at the rate in advance. We have a lot of clients that have bought even sort of 6-12 months. It may be that you're not buying all the euros up front. Maybe you're only buying a quarter or half of what you need. And that just helps spread that risk. That could be something to consider. The other side of it really is around process. And that's another reason to maybe speak to us long before you need the money, whether it be for property or anything else. Sometimes we find that people come across to Portugal to buy the property or a scouting trip, and then they find they encounter problems moving the money when you're not in your home country, when you're not in America, for example. We had one client who was buying a property and their US bank had a limit on how much they could move. That was 70,000 US dollars every 30 days. It would have probably taken them about maybe 5 months to buy that property. If they had to make the payment every 30 days. So it's things like that to sort of bear in mind, that maybe you can do a bit of research, maybe with your bank. Do they do international payments? Do they have any limits? Is there anything you can do to sign any paperwork for probably more large amounts where the bank maybe needs a little bit more authorization, forms to be filled in? Again, this is the sort of research you can do in advance.
Okay, good. And I think quite a few of our friends watching here on Zoom will already have accounts with you. For those people watching the Zoom recording and may not have found you before Spartan FX, they can just get in touch and open an account. And it might be, I mean, the timing could be as early as when you are first interested in buying in Portugal, you're going to be moving money around in Portugal. You can talk to Spartan FX and get that process going at the start when you're talking to the Portugal company, for example.
Absolutely. And the other things as well is that the other reason to sort of think about this a little bit sooner than you actually need to make a payment is we've seen customers that have tried to use their bank or an online provider and money's been held up, like their bank's taken about a week to transfer the money. One client came to us and they were trying to pay a deposit. And I think an online company kept their money for about 2 weeks. So if they had a deadline to make, fortunately, they had more money. And they can still pay the deposit. But again, sometimes there's bank clearing times, bank hold funds for extra AML checks. So
Mm.
again, you know, if you're leaving it to the last minute and you suddenly need to make a payment, then if you encounter problems, you might miss, especially if it's property, when you have deadlines to make.
And I imagine that's becoming more and more common. We live in interesting times, don't we? You know, a bank asking you, well, why do you want this money? Well, first of all, it's my money. Because I want to buy something.
Yeah.
But you see this, don't you, from your perspective, that banks can get in the way of giving you your own money?
Well, they definitely make you doubt paying people. Are you sure? You definitely want to show you want to pay this person.
Yes, I
know.
do. Right, okay. Yeah. Okay, brilliant.
And the other thing as well that we have, if you do need to sort of pay direct to the seller, which obviously, as we said, is not quite ideal, but it may happen. We've got extra tracking on the payment as well, so we know when the money's gone into the beneficiary account. We can provide proof of that. So again, if they said, "Oh, the money's not there," we've got proof that it is there.
Oh, good. Excellent. That's good to know. Fantastic. All right. And that's all, you can track that in the back office, can't you, of the Spartan FX technology. Very good. For the time being, thanks, Sarah. Of course, Sarah, so you're going to stick around for a little while, and if people want to ask you questions, they can do that. You can direct message Sarah if you want in the chat. And talking of the chat, let's go to completion now, Peter and Alice. But we've got a few questions that will be useful, I think, to include here at this point. Janine is asking, how easy is it to find recent comparable sales? Now, there isn't a database of selling prices, is there, in Portugal yet?
No, there's not. We have sometimes we've seen things that are comparing recent deals in the cities, like mostly in Porto and Lisbon. But on a national scale, there is not a database yet. I'm also not sure if there will be one in the coming years. So what we normally do on behalf of our clients is make this comparison ourselves, doing a benchmark on the same kind of, for example, 2 or 3 bathroom apartments in the city. New builds, things like that. So we can compare it, but it's not yet available on a large scale.
There you go. Thea, thank you for this. What is the interest rate? We were talking about financing earlier on. Does it vary, or is it fixed for the duration of the loan? Presumably you can get either.
Yeah, this is why also I normally, of course, I have different banks and I can look to all of them. But at the moment, I work with one of banks, and this is one of the bigger banks in Portugal, where I'm sure that the day of the completion, they commit to for example, the fixed rate. Because some of the other banks, and this is a law in Portugal, okay, you say that you want something fixed, you speak with them 2 months in advance, and then when you come to the day of the completion, 48 hours before, they will look to what is the rate at the moment. The day of today, there are some you have the flexible one and the fixed one, but let's say that at this moment I'm finalizing some project that for the next 5 years 2.9, and if you want more time, of course you have this possibility, and for the flexible one it is 3.75 plus maybe 1%, that means 4.75. But at the moment, my advice with some clients is I look to in detail, and I will say it's a promotional one for the next 5 years. Take it for 2.9, and then after 5 years or before, we will see how it's going. And any moment you can fix for the let's say 20 years, whatever.
Okay.
I can explain also something very important. We have done, because normally in Portugal, you can have a loan until you are 75 years old. But for special cases, we have done for until 80 or even more, let's say 82 or 83.
Okay. Right, that's good to know. Thank you for that. Paul and Philip and Diana, we've got extra questions. We'll come back to those after we've talked about the final step in the process, the completion, the all-important completion. The promissory's been signed, if it's going to be signed, if you haven't bypassed that process. But what's completion looking like then in this final step of the process?
Yeah, so That's if the promissory is in place. Normally, within 2 months, there is a signing of the completion of the final deed at the notary. Depends a bit on if there is a loan with a Portuguese bank involved. Sometimes then it will take place at the headquarters of the bank. Sometimes just at the notary in town or close where you're buying your property. For some clients, it's a very memorable day. They want to be there in person. And for example, if you're buying something, as Alice was saying, with 26 other people, then yeah, it's quite a day, you know.
It is.
Quite,
It's a logistical victory, if nothing else.
yeah. Sometimes it's well, it's not just a walk in the park and hey, we have signed it. So in lots of cases, also a bit depending on travel schedules and things like that, we simply advise our clients to sign a POA with the lawyer that is involved in the project, because sometimes there's still missing a document whatsoever, and then yeah, it's just easy to have this power of attorney in place. So we are flexible with a local lawyer that can step in also a week after the initially planned completion, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
Yeah, and yeah, it's always a great day for people to sign, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
It's not over there, is it? That's not the end of it for you and your support of people, because it's great. They've got their keys, but they go in and switch the light on, and maybe nothing happens. Not because not because the electrical system is faulty, but because they haven't got a supplier yet.
Yeah.
I want to say something also about the completion before we go for the after sale.
Sure, sure.
It is like this. It can be, you know, in Portugal, it can be a surprise. Like, for example, this one from the 26 people, the completion was for the 5 of March, and everybody was there, and the completion is not done. On this day, it didn't happen because the POAs from the other party were not okay, from the party of the seller. It took 1 month and 10 days because there were people from other countries that have sent the POA, and they needed to review and they needed to make new ones. The completion has been done last Wednesday now. And what I want to say is, I always want a lawyer involved. The person that is buying, he can find a lawyer for himself. We can advise a lawyer, because we help them, but also I think it's very important that they have a second opinion that also advise them.
Yep.
And the completion, yes, it's a very special day, but in certain cases, I always say, let's have a POA, because you can be there at this day and maybe it doesn't happen, or maybe a small document, or maybe normally until now always happens. And in Portugal, also the notaries, they will look to the documents and the completion the day before. And sometimes we have surprises. They say, oh, I'm missing that. And we need some time to arrange that.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you for that. Some extra insight on that, Alice. Yeah, after sales, as you put it, you know, they are the proud owners of the home, and there are a number of things to attend to at that point, and you're not going to leave them high and dry at that point. You're helping connect them in a way that they probably wouldn't know how to do themselves, quite honestly.
Yeah, I make it sure that they have the water, electricity, let's say gas, if it's needed, depending on where, the internet connection. And also after the completion, I wanted to make it sure that also the registration is under their name, the property, and also everything that is on the tax, in the tax office, that also the names are coming. I think these are the most important.
Insurances as well.
Insurance as well, yes. And then sometimes they need help because they need someone to do some renovations at the house and whatever. And we try to help them, or we try to get connected with people around the place where they are, and yeah, put them in contact.
That's wonderful. And help them organise the housewarming party, of course, to which I'm sure you'll be invited after all that hard work that's taken place. So that's wonderful. You've taken us through step by step. That's really helpful. Thank you so much. And so we'll probably pause the recording there. We can talk some more with you. Mike's off, and with Sarah as well from Spartan FX. But last word to you in terms of working with you, your invitation to people. What is you like to say to people in closing here?
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for joining tonight this webinar with Expats Portugal. Yeah, for us, really nice to step in, as we said in the beginning, as early as possible. So, of course, you're dreaming about buying property here in Portugal. Yeah, we want to get involved as soon as possible, as early as possible. It's not a necessity. We also can jump in a later stage. But to really make it a smooth running process, yeah, we would like to sit down virtually or face to face with you, and to make sure that yeah, that we can walk you through the process or this approach together with us to avoid a lot of the pitfalls or whatever,
Right.
and make it as smooth as possible. So have a look at our website. It's simply called theportugalcompany.com. Give us a call or send us an email. Happy to follow up and to see where we can best add our value.
And find a special deal for Expats Portugal members in the Expats Portugal business directory as well. Expatsportugal.com business directory. Connect with the Portugal company through there and receive a discount on their services. Peter and Alice, fantastic. And thanks everybody for the questions. We'll return to those now to make sure everything has been answered. For the time being, thank you very much on this auspicious day here in Portugal.